Right, welcome to another episode of Rec Talk. Today, the creamy filling in this Oreo that we call a podcast, Rec Talk, is Darren Revell of RecuriterWEB. Darren, how you doing?
I am very good. Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
Thank you for being here, mate.
Good to be the creamy filling.
Yeah, cream filling. Yeah, I probably had too much of the cream, as you can see. So
We're on the way.
Yeah.
We're getting there. We'll catch up soon.
To be fair, I heard this thing the other day from, I think it was on the Stephen Bartlett podcast, and between 20 and 50, we were genetically predispositioned to just continue gaining weight. We're just literally just going to, there's not a huge amount that can be done about it. If you just maintained exactly what you were doing, naturally your body just does that.
Yeah, link that to me. I need that.
Yeah.
I need that justification.
yeah, it's a nice excuse, but it's just the amount of food you put in, isn't it? So
It's like any system. Shit in, shit out, right?
yeah.
That's an IBS joke. Gross, right? Right, so Darren, you've got an interesting career in recruitment. Never seem to have kind of steered away from it. But a lot of people probably won't know, unless they go down your LinkedIn profile, is that you spent, the best part of nearly 20 years in recruitment as a consultant, manager, director, owner, before you embarked on your tech journey.
Yeah, I was very lucky. I mean, I declare undying love for the recruitment industry, and
Someone's
that's
got it.
why I didn't want to leave it in its entirety. So I joined the recruitment industry in 1993 as a trainee recruiter. It was an 8,000 basic salary with a 25% commission plan.
Nice.
And I didn't make any sales for 3 months. I almost got fired. And then in the last 9 months of my first year, I billed 350,000. And there was 150 recruitment consultants in the network. And I became the second biggest biller, not the first. Guy Lean, hate him. He was number one. But
What's Guy Ling doing these days?
He's still very
There's no room
successful.
on this podcast
No,
for
he's
number two,
a good. He's a better interview
Is that
than
another
me,
IBS joke?
for sure. But yeah, no, and I love the whole concept of recruitment. You know, finding people work is just awesome.
So was recruitment just something that you looked at as this is what I want to be in and want to get into, or like most, did you fall into it?
No, I was a capital equipment salesperson prior to recruitment, and I'd used a couple of recruitment companies to find me jobs. And with capital equipment in those days, because I'm as old as fossil, you basically used to have to walk around industrial estates like this, knock on doors.
What exactly is capital equipment?
Fax machines,
I sold fax machines.
copiers, telephone systems.
No, nobody's questioning their existence. Nobody's out there saying they did exist.
I didn't go door to door though. No, I had the
Yeah, so we had to do the door-to-door thing and gather the compliment slips, gather the name of the decision makers, and then come back and obviously pitch. And you would know, like, if you had you'd know about fax if they had a Canon machine, and I was NEC. So you would have a whole pre-prepared pitch. And when I went into a recruitment company and they said, well, we're going to market you out. We're going to spec you out to a few companies. I'm like, well, what's that then? Well, we're going to phone them up and say, these are your capabilities. These are your skills. I thought, well, I can do that. And where'd you do it from? Well, you just sit on that desk. So all that walking around in the rain and snow and, you know.
lugging a fax machine around.
And it was around
the pursuit of happiness. You know, if you leave it and you got to run after the tramp that's taken it.
It was like around the time when people were just starting to not want cold callers on the doorstep. I mean, obviously on the telephone is a different thing. And the telephone, nobody had a problem with it then, 1993. So it was just like, this is going to be so much easier.
It's funny you say that, because that was one of the key attracting points for me. Because when I went to it, because I came from a retail sales background, so phone sales, cars, banking, that sort of stuff, and that was so heavily reliant on footfall. People actually coming into dealerships, coming into retail stores, and all that sort of stuff. Whereas for me, the attraction was, hang on, I can create my own business. I can just literally be picking up the phone. So it's all down to activity.
And the no weekends.
And there was a no weekends thing as well that helped.
Yeah, I tried retail once, and then they said you've got to work a Saturday, and that was me done. So
this is no joke right now. Until he told me about recruitment, right, I thought all sales jobs were working Saturdays. For me, I was just like, so it's like Monday to Friday, 9 till 5, it's like office based, business to business hours. I was like, what about Saturdays? He's like, no, it's Monday to Friday. It's like, Yeah, no, but no Saturday compulsory. No, we're closed on a Saturday.
Well, you hadn't had a Saturday off for years, had you?
Just didn't think that was a thing.
No, I mean, it's amazing. I think retail is a natural progression into recruitment. I think there's so many natural progressions into recruitment, but if you've dealt with that, angry customer that's had a problem, but they've got a problem with a product, but you're the problem suddenly on the counter. Or my wife worked in John Lewis on the Clarence concession.
Can't be that
Very
many
fancy.
people complaining at John Lewis.
I used to go in and buy a lunch, and I had to stop going in because apparently husbands are not allowed to tell rude customers in John Lewis to stop speaking badly to their wife. So,
Or fuck off.
yeah,
I'll say it.
I resisted the fuck off, but that's really what I wanted to say.
Well, no,
so.
yeah, because you don't talk to anyone like that, let alone that's my wife you talk to.
Only I get to talk to about that.
Yeah. That's
So
what
come
she
on, your fucking lunch is getting cold.
How dare you tell them to not tell me to fuck off? You do it every 5 minutes.
Yeah. Stood in the background, Dan's like, yeah, see, how do you think it feels now? You like that?
Yeah, although if it's the other way around for me, it'd be my wife telling me to fuck off.
Yeah.
Like, I'll handle this myself. Fuck off, don't need your help.
Yeah.
So go on, anyway.
Yeah, so I got into, you would say by accident, but I kind of I had a sneaking desire to be in it because it looked easy. Easier than what I was doing. But I just, I've been in that position where I've been unemployed and, I'm 55, so I'm Thatcher generation, I'm working class background and work is everything. Your whole worth is measured by, are you in work? When I was out of work and for a brief time and a recruitment company got me a job, it was like, wow, So I worked for the most inspirational person, a guy called Mike O'Flynn, and I credit a lot of my success to him because he was just the best manager and he created an environment that was just wonderful to work in. There was competitions, 8,000 basic salary in 93 wasn't a big basic salary. You needed to get deals through the door to get that commission scheme to work. So what he did was he had all these kind of £50 bonus schemes, cash, and it wasn't like going to work. It was literally like going to see your mates, and the atmosphere that was there, everybody was supportive. I did Revell Netwear when it was kicking off, and all the others on their desks were, they had all these patch cards full of information, and it was like, well, I do AS400, so you can call all of my managers because they'll be in charge of rolling out, laptops and PCs when they were all kicking off. So it's just the most enjoyable time. That first year in recruitment was my most enjoyable time ever.
Very few people say that.
But
Very few people.
It's really funny actually that the network that you were saying that you had around you, like supportive manager and kind of colleagues who were sitting there saying, oh, here's like some of my clients that I'm working with, go call them because they'll work for you. Like fucking hell, when we were at these sort of places, big corporates and all that sort of stuff, not only were you competing with other agencies out in the market, you were competing with other consultants within your business. And anytime you were trying to like, me and Nick worked really, really well together because we were more bothered about filling the job, satisfying the client, rather than like, no, that job should be temp, no, this should be perm. But when we were operating up with other people, it was like, oh, can you just get me access to this particular line manager? No, they only want to deal with me. That's it, nobody else. They only want to deal with me. All your work that you do through with them has to come through me. So I don't understand what you're gaining by having that level of control on any kind of client, or what it is that you're trying to achieve.
It's that toxic environment thing, though, isn't it? Like you're what you're describing there is a fun atmosphere of everybody like-minded. Right, let's get deals over the line. Let's all earn some commission, but also let's accept that we're here for 40 hours a week, right? So if we're here 40 hours a week, let's enjoy those 40 hours. Let's not make it a slog and a miserable experience for each and every one of them. Driven clearly by the manager that sort of setting that culture piece.
Well, we were based out of Bermondsey in southeast London, so all of my customers were in the city. So all you had to do was walk over the bridge, and in those days you could actually walk CVs over and sit down with the line manager and talk them through, 3 or 4 CVs. But and I lived in Kent at the time, so it was quite a schlep in to that office. But where you had a Saturday morning club or a Sunday morning club, It was volunteer, but it was decided by the workforce because we would canvassing candidates for where they've been for interview. That was, that's where you made a lot of your sales. So you could only do a certain amount of that, but we didn't have a 40-hour week. We would, when 6 o'clock came, instead of leaving the office, quite often a pizza would come around. We'd eat that, and then we'd be on the phones for a couple of hours, following up candidates, trying to generate leads. And then we would do that on a Saturday or a Sunday morning. As I say, that wasn't something that Mick had us do contractually, but we were also motivated. And that was led by a guy called Alan Smith, and he was the biggest biller. And he just had a way with it. He was a hospital porter before he was a recruiter. And he just had a natural way of bringing on trainees. He had no ego to speak of in as much that he didn't want to beat you into the ground and be the big dog. He definitely wanted everybody to succeed and win. So, yeah, I mean, literally best year of my working life. I mean, I work for myself now, obviously, and when you get your first deal, I wanted to put the check on the wall, and my wife said, no, bank it. We need the money. But yeah, it was an awesome time. And then I got headhunted out of that role because we were part of James Cahn's Humana network.
Okay, yeah.
So I was asked to give a speech at one of the networks about why my closing was so good and stuff like that. And my closing was good because I just followed the training to the letter. I didn't know any better. So they just said to me, here's the training manual, here's the book. And we were also trained by a guy called Tony Byrne, who was an American trainer. And he had this system. And it was largely speccing candidates out to market. So he had a big book. We had this big ledger. It was like almost the size of that table. And we had to fill it out manually. So you had to write out, this is candidate X, and I'm marketing them to these 25 companies. This is candidate Y, and I'm marketing them to these 25. You had 4 candidates. Right. Then you had a list of all the people you had to headhunt. Then you had a list of your candidates that you needed to follow up to interview prep, and a list of all the ones you had to debrief. And because it was manual, you had to copy the information, because the day page, you had to turn it. So we sat there for 45 minutes filling out the next day's plan and stuff. But again,
paper CRM, isn't it?
It was purely paper CRM. It was but it was an idiot's guide. If you just keep doing this, and your goal was to get from obviously everything ticked off, and the last, after you've been doing it a while, the last thing you wanted to do was move a candidate onto the next day's page. As a marketing prospect, because you wanted them to be on the next day's page as somebody who was going out for interview and stuff. And again, coming back to where Mick was really clever, week 1, let's say the £50 bonus at the end of the week would be for the person who got the most interviews. Week 2, the bonus would be the one who got the most offers. Week 3 would be the one who got the most, contractors out type of thing. So there was a natural flow to his motivation that led to deals. So very, very smart. But his whole persona was, he knew about you as a person.
Yeah.
And again, if you translate it to great sporting managers, all the managers that, all the stuff that's said about Sir Alex Ferguson and a little bit that's being said about Potter now, that he knows his players and he knows their personal lives and he knows their situations and stuff. So the way of making you feel like you were special. And obviously that just translated into, well, I work really hard because I want to be successful and I want to please Mick. That was definitely a motivator.
It's interesting that, isn't it? Because you hear that a lot in the whole, like, good people don't leave good companies, they leave bad managers and that kind of thing. But, like, here you are sat here describing very clearly, like, look, do you know what? The pay wasn't great. The working hours clearly weren't great. And the whole kind of infrastructure wasn't great. But what kept you there was this environment that Mick had created that made you think, this is the best thing. This is amazing.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, I don't think there was any, like, it was great. That's the truth. It was great. We live in a different world now where, people of our generation, thankfully, have more time to themselves because inbound strategy is really cool. And it can do a lot of the legwork that, all of our strategy was outbound strategy. Yeah. Your only element of inbound strategy was when you made friends with contractors or candidates and they stayed in your network, and naturally they would phone you in 6 months or naturally they would phone you in 3 years type of thing. but I don't feel remotely hard done by working those hours because it didn't feel like work. I can't emphasize that. It wasn't like a chore, never, a chore. And I'm not like bigging myself up and saying, well, I'm the world's hardest worker and stuff like that. It just didn't feel like work. It was just, I mean, I split up with my first wife shortly after I got that job, and I was back at my parents', and I was waking up at 4:30 in the morning thinking, because I want to get to that work environment. And so maybe some of that was involved in it as well, that it was a safe place for me to go and have fun and all that type of thing. But as I say, I mean, the pay was good when you were hitting your numbers. 25% commission was, 25% at 350 grand is not bad.
No,
and this is 1993 when that was a lot of money. So, they just, like the company car scheme, you can have a Porsche, you could have once you hit your targets, you could have a Porsche, you could have a Mercedes, you could have a Lotus, all
what did
this.
You have?
I qualified for a Mercedes, but I didn't have it in the end. But like everything was geared towards, buy us pizzas, we had company parties, all this stuff that you see now about recruitment companies, and they're showing themselves at the races and Ascot and at the rugby and all of that type of stuff. All of that was done by Mick, so it was a great environment. I would have stayed with Mick for a lifetime, but his business was taken over by James Khan's Humana business, and I love James to death. I know him reasonably well. I'm not in touch with him these days, but I was very had a lot of dialogue with him in those days, and over the last 10 years type of thing, that dialogue's sort of died off. But I didn't want to work in James's environment because James's environment was a lot more corporate. And I'd enjoyed the freedom that Mick had created. So I would have gone there, but when the business was taken over, but I was headhunted, and I went into that role to kind of body swerve what I thought was an environment which would have been a bit too aggressive and a bit too cutthroat. So
okay, fine. And then obviously you've gone on to then get promoted and sort of run teams and then eventually kind of up to sort of director level. So if we kind of looking back at your recruitment career, is there anything you'd change? Was there any points where you could kind of be like, actually things would have gone differently if I'd have gone down this route instead?
No, not really. I mean, it says on my profile, I had issues with post-traumatic stress disorder. So I can empathise with all the people that are talking about imposter syndrome and having anxieties and stuff. I got diagnosed 19 years ago with post-traumatic stress disorder, and where it went back to was my childhood. And I drowned when I was 5.
Crikey, okay.
Basically, and they brought me back, and I buried all of that knowledge inside myself because at 5 years old you don't know how to process that.
No, just compartmentalise it, don't you?
Yeah, and then my father died in a road accident when I was 9. Somebody sold him a dodgy car, and he was my hero. That was my whole life force. And the thing that I would change, I wouldn't change any decisions about my recruitment career. I would have found counselling sooner, because I would get to the top of my game, think, oh, I'm going to get found out at this. I'm not really that good at it, and crash.
Okay, so fine, that hence the imposter syndrome thing. So you sort of like.
What made you think then that you weren't that good at it? Your numbers were showing it, and it was.
Well, I think I had a really difficult relationship with my dad. He was a 1970s dad, and he was punch him first, ask questions later, and I'm more Kung Fu Panda. So,
Great film.
I'm a pacifist, Dad was very much a man's man of that era. Obviously. So he was a little. After I came out of the river, I had natural fears that nobody knew about, and I was. Obviously, I turned from being this confident little 5-year-old, roughy-tufty type of boy to this, shadow of my former self. Yeah. And that really got under his skin and irritated him. So everything I did for the next 4 years kind of irritated him in that way. So, doing a counselling session at your
That's okay.
podcast, but that's what I found out in counselling. That's where all of that knowledge came from. So I spent 20 years trying to please my dad that wasn't there, and thinking like, oh well, this wouldn't be good enough because it wouldn't be a high enough standard for him and stuff like that. So
So
I
it's
mean,
interesting that you say he was your hero then. If kind of from sort of 5 to sort of where you passed, you were sort of hell bent on just trying to please him, weren't you?
yeah, I think everyone's. Well, I mean, I'm generalising here, but I think everyone's dad is their hero. Mums are heroes too. But once something's taken away from you, I think you tend to
Remember the good.
it becomes a bit more Hollywood. There's a bit of an emotional attachment to something that could have been.
Yeah, you end up romanticising about certain things, don't you? And kind of the rose-tinted piece comes back over time. And
Yeah, so I mean, I changed job a couple of times after I left because I was trying to progress into directorship. I was trying to progress into man management, and my greatest success, I think, in recruitment was managing other people. Because I brought a very nurturing style of management to them, and certainly the people that have worked for me, they all went on to be, really big in their careers under their own strengths. I'm not saying I'm claiming,
your job as a manager is to keep them on a path.
Yeah,
and stop them from straying to the kind of the path of least resistance, which often leads to going nowhere. Really.
Yeah, exactly that. I wanted to motivate people. I wanted to be that kind of technical manager that I had your back on everything.
You wanted to be somebody else's Mick, didn't you?
Yes, 100%.
I get that.
100%.
I can see that.
And I met, another inspirational leader, Dennis Linscott. God rest his soul. He's not here anymore, but he was a similar guy to Mick, and and you could see people would walk on, hot coals for both of them type of thing. So that was what I brought to my management. But in my personal life, what was happening with me in terms of I don't think I stayed long enough in any one job to have fully finished it. So that would be the regret that I would have about my past recruitment career. And what working for yourself does is it allows you to change and reinvent yourself without it being a formal thing on your CV and looking like you've had 13 jobs. So that being an entrepreneur, what a wonderful word that is.
Wonderfully overused word as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah.
Serial entrepreneurs, okay. You keep setting up on failing businesses, basically. But okay, go on.
This time next year, Rodders, will be millionaires. So that allowed me the freedom that I also don't think necessarily that the corporate environment at that time allowed you enough freedom. There was a lot more straight lines of what you had to stick inside. And there's all. Tom Peters wrote a book, In Search of Excellence, that said, if they've been made redundant, never hire them, and all that type of stuff. And then he wrote a book 10 years later that said if they haven't been fired twice and gone around the world and dyed their hair purple and all of this type of stuff. So, moving out of recruitment into working for myself gave me the freedom to, if I didn't like what I was doing.
So where did that idea come from then? So I mean, because again, it's not as though. Well, you find a lot of people end up in this situation. Certainly, a lot of people we come across, right, who end up either setting up on their own, and that seems to have spiked recently with the amount of job cuts that are out there in the marketplace, where it becomes setting up your own business comes out of necessity rather than okay, I'm at the top of my game here. I'm going to go and do this. I'm going to back myself, right? When we set up Michael Sharma Group, we were on a trajectory. We were doing really, really well. And people were really surprised. What do you mean? You're going to walk away from job security and regular paychecks and blah 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 to do this on your own? That don't make sense. And then in the recent years, where with the pandemic hitting and people being let go, there's all of a sudden this massive spike of people going alone and becoming self-employed or entrepreneurs, if you want to call them that. You walked out at director designate and gone, no, I'm going to go do founding recruitment agencies and that kind of thing. And then gone, no, I'm going to go and work for myself now. That was a big move, a brave move. So what brought that on?
So my wife is my number one fan.
Okay.
And in terms of backing me as an individual, behind every great man they say is a great woman, or an even greater woman in my case. And she would see me come home frustrated that when you're working for somebody else, there is a lot of ego in our industry, and there's a lot of, we've employed you to do this. Oh, hang on a second, he's doing that really a bit too well, and I'm not sure I like that, even though, you know. And again, that's not every company, but, you know, there's a lot of them out there like that type of thing. And my father-in-law is probably my second biggest fan, and they're Scottish. My Scottish father-in-law's Scottish, and they're just like...
Not everyone's perfect.
You know, we won't tell you what we call them really, but yeah, so, and I think, you know, every pound's a prisoner with my father-in-law, and he was just like, go on, you know, do it. And my wife's constantly, you should do this for yourself, you should do this for yourself. And my last employers were really great guys. I mean, they paid me an absolute fortune, and they looked after me very, very well. They came to our wedding, bought all of our wedding china. I mean, they bent over backwards to look after me. But there was still an element of you're not fully in charge of your own, you know.
It's not your name above the door, is it?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, yeah.
Like when JobServe was the best. I mean, JobServe came to market with this job board and invented the job. I mean, I'm a monster to say they invented it, but Robbie Cowling at JobServe, he invented the job board.
Yeah.
And when he brought that job board to market, he brought it to market because what a lot of people don't know, if they weren't around at that time, was that he had a service before which was faxing you CVs. And actually, that's one of the ways I found out about recruitment companies, because if you sold a recruitment company a fax machine, you'd sell them two, because there was one for the inbound faxes and one for the outbound faxes, and all the paper consumables, because that you got commission on selling paper and all of that type of stuff. So he had this fax me service. I can't remember the number. I'm probably misquoting the number now, but I think it was like 100,000 or 300,000 contractors that he'd already networked with and was faxing out their availability. So when he bought the job board online, he already had those people to read the adverts, which is why it flew. Because and that's the biggest problem with launching a job board today, is, you know, how do you get people to read the adverts? Same with any website. How do you get people to get on the page and stuff? And one of the things I spotted then was he wasn't really being challenged directly in that IT marketplace. And we as a recruitment business had hundreds of thousands of CVs. And the recruitment company I was working for had a software development house as well. And I just wanted them to invest in building a job board, because I wanted us to have a second income stream. And they just weren't interested in that. And I think that's what I was saying about working for yourself. You know, if you want to start up a company that builds websites, like really good ones, like Tristan makes.
Like Tristan does.
Yeah.
Shout out Tristan.
Big shout out.
There's another one though, isn't there? There's like a competitor to RecDev.
They're the second best.
The second best ones.
That'd be
Can't think of it.
RecuriterWEB, I believe.
RecuriterWEB. Good company. Yeah.
Great
What
guys.
do they do? Do they do bespoke recruitment websites?
Bespoke and template.
And
Yeah.
template,
Yeah.
And what about recruitment branding? Do they do any of that?
Yeah, a bit of that.
Robert Woodford does the videos though.
He's the video guy. But he's the
no
number.
return on investment for Robert.
He's the number 2 video guy, because your video guy is clearly number 1, obviously. But yeah, I mean, that freedom, like I felt once I was very confident in that role and saw all these opportunities to mushroom into sort of, you know, subsidiary marketplaces. And it was a banking recruitment company, and their software house was producing banking tech, and they were after the big numbers with the big banking systems. And I just saw this way, you know, of making. So those two things kind of like, well, it's either crap or get off the pot, isn't it? You know, so start the tech company and away you go type of thing. And that's how I ended up in tech, but specifically recruitment tech, because I wanted to be able to say, well, I know what you guys do type of thing, so I could empathise with it. You know, I'm not just, I've thought about why we've made stuff this way and why we deliver it this way and that way type of thing. So that's how
because I suppose as a recruitment business owner, or a business owner of any kind, one of the big things, we talked about it with Rob, weren't we, recently, when it was like, the worst thing about, let's say, recruitment marketing is having to explain to an outsourced agency, this is what recruitment is, this is what it does, and this is how it works. Well, we had it when we were trying to create. We were kind of in the process of creating a CRM, and we spoke to these two lads at Hyphen Creative. Really good guys, great guys actually. And we had to get them in, show them what a recruitment CRM does, really kind of walk them through the journey of how an agency would use a CRM, and then they would go out and try and build it based on that. But it was more often than not, it was just a case of
they'd miss like simple things.
Yeah.
You know, what we would consider to be obvious simple things, they would just miss because they're just not specialists. But that's just why specialist markets work so well, right? So, well, there's like a web development business that only make hotel websites. That's all they do, and they're the largest in what they do. And there's nobody who can touch them because, well, they've picked the niche. They're like, this is what we do.
Yeah, well, I mean, recruitment is a specialist subject.
Yeah.
I mean, it really genuinely is. And people, liken it to a estate agency because there's the house, which is the product, and there's the people, which are the people, the candidates to service type of thing. But unlike a estate agency, you're in and out of those people's lives on a regular basis. I mean, I've been in my present house 12 years, right? And the estate agent doesn't phone me up and say, are you still available for house buying?
Equally, also, your house
the
can't
product
say
doesn't say no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Your house can't say, I don't want to be bought by Darren.
The house doesn't have 6 people come and see it and be like, I don't like any of them.
No.
None of you can live. You know what I mean? Whereas
none of you have the right to live with me.
yeah.
Palace.
Do you know what I mean? Whereas a candidate has the right, and rightfully so, to interview at 6 different companies and go, none of them are right for me. I'll stay where I am. Yeah, it's a really interesting sales world because it's the only. It's one of. I would argue it's the only sales industry where the product, i.e., the candidate, has the option to say no at any point. You go down a game and say, "Give me a PS5," and the PS5 says, "No, I don't want to go in with you."
Yeah, it's not only can they say no, but they can also say no inside the guarantee period.
Yeah,
So you might think you've got one over the line at 5 weeks late. I mean, one of my biggest sales, I think it was my biggest permanent sale my first year. The guy got the job, and we were asking. I mean, one of the things we were taught was to sell at high fees. So we would regularly chasing 25 to 35% fees. And I think, again, that being confident, that Mick produced this confidence in us, so therefore, asking for higher fees, we weren't troubled by that type of thing. But it turned out he was an alcoholic, and he was found, he'd broken into the chief, he was working late one night, and it was a National Bank of Mexico, and he'd sort of broken into the chief exec's office.
You talk about your candidate now, Mick, aren't you?
Right, fell asleep, and wet himself on the leather couch.
Brilliant.
And then of course that fee got refunded, type of thing. I mean,
that's the finance world, baby. There's a lot more of them stories. I'll tell you.
I mean, I wrote an article for LinkedIn because there's all this recruiter bashing. I can't. It's rubbish. I mean, the amount of things that recruiters, I think it's, either they were on the grassy knoll and shot President Kennedy, apparently, so everything that the recruiters have done, they're responsible for world debt and, COVID probably. So I don't buy into all of that type of stuff.
What was the one that you saw the other day when it was like recruiters are responsible?
Oh, this guy was genuine, yeah. So this guy genuinely was like, this whole people asking for a pay rise and the government not being able to afford to give like nurses and so on a pay rise. He managed to link directly back to the fact that it's because recruitment agencies charge such atrociously high fees. And if we charged a more reasonable fee, i.e. 5 or 10%, then the government would have more money to pay the nurses and frontline staff. And I was like, and I read through it, and I read through it again. I was like, this fucking guy's serious. Like, he genuinely believes this. Like, he really thinks that if recruiters are not only to blame for that, but also, if we were to change our fee structure, then that money would go directly back to those people. Like he convinced himself.
We're seen as the window salespeople or the used car salespeople of the kind of professional world, right? That's kind of the general perception of recruiters, sleazy salespeople.
Well, I think it's the general perception of who you're connected to, because in reality, like LinkedIn, that's where I spend all my time. And I use LinkedIn because I work in my office by myself. I actually use it as a platform like you're my colleagues. So I've got no defined strategy to try to win business, all this.
I've got a big ledger book where you just
No,
Right.
nothing.
Okay,
Literally,
we're on
Which
page
was-
6.
I just wake up and think, right, today I'll say that, because it would be like having a coffee over lunch with you guys type of thing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there are some things that I really do comment on. I commented a lot around the GDPR when that came out, and Google for Jobs and all that type of stuff. But generally speaking, it's like, that is my work community. Those are my workmates that I'm connecting with on LinkedIn and stuff. But you see all of this negativity about recruiters because of the way the algorithm works. Because there's 42,000 recruitment companies registered at Companies House. Only about 30,000 of them are active, and the industry is producing billions. If it was as bad as the people in your immediate circle said it was, there'd be no recruitment. It couldn't exist. So it's over-exaggerated, and it's also connected to how the algorithm works and what we're seeing. So realistically, it's actually like standing in the home end or the cop at Liverpool and saying bad things about Man United. You've got thousands of people around you that would all agree with that, but that's not football as a whole type of thing. So I think what you see on LinkedIn is via algorithm, and it's not reflective of the recruitment industry in any way, shape or form.
I used to take it really personally.
I'm going to argue the other point though, right?
Good. Yeah.
In that I don't entirely agree with that, for the reason that you've been in the game a long time and you've seen really good people, right?
One of the founding members of recruitment. Was recruitment founded in like '93.
Yeah.
In Egyptian times, apparently.
But recruitment as an industry has a very low barrier to entry.
Yeah.
It has a stack 'em high mentality. Get them in, train them up, get them on the phones. If they're no good, fuck them off. Get the next lot in. Get the next lot in. It's the obvious thing to do if you've got no real tangible skill set in that. I didn't go to university necessarily to learn how to be a doctor, lawyer, or engineer or whatever. I don't want to do an apprenticeship on the tools, but I want an office job. Oh yeah, I'll give recruitment a bash. There's a lot of people that enter recruitment, whether it's industrial or professional services or whatever. A lot of people enter recruitment and they'll all say, "Oh, we fell into it," right? Because the barrier to entry is so low. You can't fall into being a doctor. You can't fall into being a lawyer. You can't fall into being a fireman. Right? It's an active career choice that you make. And when you have an industry that allows people to just fall into it, you have a lot of shit that falls in with it. And the good people are really, really good. And I will argue that the good people go on to do great things, not necessarily working for themselves, but run good teams and that kind of thing. But you are surrounded by a lot of shit. A lot of recruiters who will inbox you and be like, "Oh, I can see you've got web development written on your thing. I've got a client who's looking for a web developer. Would you do it?" And he's like, "Little dickhead, have you even read my profile?" Not really, no. Because I'm just bashing out automation, or I'm bashing out as many emails as I can. So there are shit people in recruitment. You can't. There's no denying that,
No, I'm not saying there aren't. What I'm saying is that it's overhyped. The volume of
I agree with the
right?
algorithm and how that works. Yeah, because it's something. The algorithm is only going to put things on your feed that A, you're going to interact with, and B, you're going to sit on. Because LinkedIn don't particularly give a shit whether or not you use them to get a job or whether you use them to connect and widen your network. LinkedIn don't give a shit. All they care about is, are you using our fucking platform?
Yeah.
So
They want you on the platform. And if they notice that this person's cookies in show us that he or she will stay on our platform as long as we keep showing them pictures of people's dogs, pictures of like relatively attractive girls taking selfies of themselves, and bashing particular political parties and or recruiters or industries in general. If I keep putting this shit in front of you, you're going to stay on my platform. Keep you away from Facebook, keep you away from TikTok and all the rest of it. And that's what they really give a shit about.
Yeah, I think I understand what you're saying, but my point is that it's oversold, that recruiters are so bad.
So
I think
there's more recruiters that are good than there are bad.
Definitely. I mean, but just by the numbers, you couldn't have businesses that succeed in the numbers that recruitment companies succeed in and produce the billings that they produce, and then not be good employees there. I've been fortunate to meet thousands of recruitment consultants personally in my career. Literally shake hands, being in the same room with thousands of them, and I can count on one hand the people that were wrong uns, basically. And I think
a person that you don't get along with, for example, or somebody that is a bit of a for the lack of a better word, twat, when you meet them, doesn't make them a bad recruiter.
No.
Equally, a nice person who you have had a pleasant interaction with doesn't necessarily make that person a good recruiter.
Yeah,
right?
I'm not saying them as people. I'm talking about when I talk to them about recruitment
Okay, right, within that context. Okay,
understanding
fine. Yeah.
recruitment and stuff. And I think the industry wants to liken itself to accountants and to lawyers who, give strategic advice and so on and so forth. But we're a sales industry, and when you say that there's a low barrier to entry to recruitment, there's a low barrier to entry to all sales. If you want to sell fridges, if you want to sell hot tubs, if you want to sell cars, if you want to sell plumbing,
Agree. Yeah,
if you want to sell carpentry services, if you want to sell IT services, telecom service, it's sales that has a low barrier to entry.
I'll agree with that, yeah.
Right? And we as a nation have a problem with salespeople, right? We don't like, as a nation, seeing people succeed through sales.
Because it's seen as a swear word, right? You work in sales, it's like, oh, what did you do wrong? Right?
So when you go to the US or you go to Europe, salespeople aren't treated that way. The amount of effort that people have to put in to get a sale is sometimes enormous. Yeah, sometimes it can be really simple. You can just have a CV. It lands in your lap. Like when I was working the banking technologies, if you had a Condor Plus technology person, you could place them 10 times over and the fee would never be haggled, type of thing.
That's supply and demand. That's different.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So, but there is also this, when you're an accountant, when the Queen was asked to pay tax, she went to a specific tax consultant, and that tax consultant had a track record of saving Ireland's richest man millions in tax, and he got paid very well for it. And nobody would, the guy wouldn't have dreamed of saying to him, well, you made X million off of saving me 100 millions, because he was pleased with the saving of the 100 millions. A lot of the negativity from our industry comes from the temporary side of the business and the contract side of the business, more so than the permanent side of the business. And that started to shift because there are a lot more permanent people being underserved by the volume. But it's this concept that, okay, I'm getting £10 an hour, you're getting £5 an hour.
I'm doing the work.
And I'm doing the work.
Yeah.
There is no concept of how many sales calls did you have to make, how many sleepless nights did you have,
Yeah, they
how
don't
many
see
meetings.
the value add,
No.
right? But then that's a responsibility on both sides of the argument.
But
right?
I think there's also an element of the practices taught within recruitment are quite poor as well. I mean, we've seen firsthand when it's like,
we've
that
seen the
person's
sleazy sales
out
side
of
of it,
rebate.
yeah.
That person's out of rebate. They've been in the job 6 months now, so they're definitely well outside of rebate.
Yeah, pull them out.
Get them elsewhere. But even things like, look, the way recruiters pick up leads, or historically used to pick up leads, was talk to the candidate. Oh, where else are you interviewing? Oh, okay, yeah.
I ask because I care.
Yeah, tell me, because then that way I don't send your CV to the same place. No, what you're doing is you're writing down, and candidates are wise up to that now, right? And they're looking at that as to say, yeah, I'm not giving you extra leads because you're reducing my chances to be able to get those jobs that I'm applying for. So I think some of the practices that have been brought to light because of platforms like LinkedIn and because of forums and whatever, because I mean the world's got a whole lot smaller since the internet, right? And therefore we can communicate with a lot of different people. So those practices have come to light. I agree with you. I think for the most part, most recruiters, and I'd say 9 out of every 10 recruiter, will want to do right for their candidate, for their client, and for themselves, because the game is about longevity, isn't it?
It's also a lot easier if you do the job well.
Exactly.
Life is in general is easier, and I think you're absolutely. I mean, that's the only part about recruitment. I mean, right from my first days in recruitment, I would say to my candidates, don't tell people where you've been for interview. Mm-hmm. We were taught that way.
Yeah, wise and what?
Right.
Yeah.
We were taught to get the leads, and then when we got our people to make sure they didn't give away those leads. So I think that is, if you look at sharp practices and stuff like that, then. But I think you can eradicate that and. With inbound strategy now, and you can also eradicate that with good tech. You mentioned CRM tech and stuff like that. Most recruiters are underserved. Whenever I've done any analysis, because my first job, my first 4 years, I actually had a consultancy and training company. So I would go into recruitment companies, look at their sales practices and train them. And what recruitment companies generally are is candidate data rich and client data poor,
Yeah.
right? I mentioned Dennis Linscott earlier. Dennis Linscott was an absolute visionary for our industry, and they had their own software house. And I was able to shape the way that that applicant tracking system was made. And that applicant tracking system could scan the calls that the researchers were making and scan the CVs and find us company records off of those CVs. And when we implemented that, our sales went through the roof, because previously we might know 3,000 companies and 30,000 candidates. Suddenly we knew 9,000 companies. And most recruiters, I think, struggle when they're brought into a recruitment company. If we back it up and say, where does the responsibility lie? If you look at the heads of organisations, they think, well, we've got 16 IT recruiters, it would be good to have 18, and then we'd make X more money. They don't actually look at the market and go, can this support 1,000 more, this market support 1,000 more phone calls a month, and would that produce 180,000 in fees or 200,000 in fees and stuff? And the answer to that is in the candidate data. Again, we would talk to Canvas, look at the CV, they've worked 5 places, those are 5 places I'm going to add to my patch cards.
Yeah.
So I think, again, the frustration that candidates have is genuine. It clearly is, otherwise they wouldn't be talking about it. But I think the recruitment industry needs to do stuff with its tech as much as it needs to do, and that's not, I work in tech, but I don't work in that particular area of tech, so I'm not angling for me here. I've been saying it since you had Dot. An applicant tracking system should be built in such a way that, yes, we put all this candidate data in it and looks at it and slices it and dices it and says, well, we can match them 1,000 different ways to the jobs that we got, but it isn't slicing it and dicing it and creating all these company records that says there's where you could pitch a candidate. Now, if I go back to my very first job, we were encouraged to have 400 company records that we knew intimately and 400 contractors that we knew intimately. I was never as successful, again, as a recruiter, not working that system, because I couldn't get technology to mirror that system. If I saw somebody's a bank on a CV that I didn't know existed, I could just write it on my patch card and put it in my ABC section type of thing, and it was just there physically to take out. And I go, right, I'm just going to work my way and cold call through these banks type of thing. So I think it's a more complicated question than just there's a lot of people in recruitment that come into it and are bad.
There's a lot of course it is. Yeah, look, I think the candidate frustration is this is something that we were literally on the phone to each other about until late the other night, where we're as an agency that there are, as you said, 30,000 of them out there, right? A lot of them are boutique agencies, our size, that kind of thing. They can only do so much. They're geographically restricted by volume of staff, that kind of thing. Candidates take their time to register with us, work with us, for us to try and find them a job. Do we place everybody we register? Of course we don't. Nobody does. Not a single agency in the world can say that they do that. So what ends up happening is...
Do we place with any of the clients that we...
Do we place with every single client that we're aware of? No. So I meet Darren and I'm like, Darren's great at the following things. I've worked with him on his CV. We've got him registered. He's on my CRM now. I've identified 50 businesses here that Darren would add value to, in my opinion, and I've sent him those ways. But I have no vacancies. Only going to be one reason why they don't want to see Darren. I don't want to work with you is another one. You're not on my supply list is another one. I hate agencies, go away is another one. I do all my recruitment myself is another one. Oh, I know you. I don't like your content on LinkedIn. I'm never going to work with you is another one, right? And so all these different reasons why Darren is not going to get seen by these 50 businesses. And that's frustrating. Not just for the candidates, but for the agencies as well. Because we're sat there, you're too expensive, we don't use you, as an example. And we're sat there going, well, all right, do we develop a web app where the web app speaks to every single boutique agency's CRMs and says, give us all these candidates that you've spent time registering who are missing out on opportunities because of the industry or because of one reason or another. Let's pile them into one massive pool of information, and then open that out to these clients who don't want to use agencies for any one of their reasons, and say, all right, do it yourself. If you think you can do the job of the agencies yourself, or you don't want to pay for it or whatever, fine. Here they all are. These are active, looking for jobs, candidates that have had their CVs gone through, they've registered, their proof of work and right to work is all sorted. These are good to go people. And for one reason or other, the agencies that they're registered with are not going to place them. So here they are. Help yourselves. And then you guys pay for that. You pay your monthly subscription or an annual subscription for access to that. there's a gap in the market for something like that. But the issue you have is recruiters don't trust recruiters and would never voluntarily offer that information up. Clients are not going to see the value in doing it themselves. And
we have that with RecTools. I mean, RecTools is our free-to-use community, right? So literally, it's
and RecTools is awesome.
Thank you. No,
it really is.
Yeah. But the amount of
Tristan, you're doing well, mate.
He's doing.
Pay increases on the way, right?
But we get people
I'll dust off the old recruitment consultant tools later, and
my client needs a pay rise.
Get his patch cards out.
Tristan needs a better represent. Yeah.
But the point is, so with RecTools is like it's literally just a recruitment agency expo, a virtual recruitment agency expo, where you can just go on and just look for whatever it is that you need, right? And the amount of times we've had conversations with recruiters, and they're like, "Yeah, but what do you get out of it?
Yeah. How are you making money?" Oh, we're not making money. I've got a recruitment business that props it up financially. Oh, but what are you getting out of it though? Nothing. We're addressing an issue in the market that exists. You know.
I don't know who we are. Trusted, free, like it. Pull up web developers on RecTools, please, Tristan.
But when I say it's excellent, I mean it's brilliant. It's because of your philosophy. You're not trying to make any money out of it. You're just trying to do it.
I make enough money out of our recruitment business.
Yeah.
We make a living with that. We can fund RecTools. We can fund RecTalk podcast by our recruitment business.
Well, this was born off the frustration of me and Nitin as recruitment business owners, thinking, right, I need a new CRM. I go onto LinkedIn and then I get hounded by all these different recruitment CRMs that are like, yeah, use us. And then, look, don't get me wrong, we go out and we do the demos, we look at all this stuff, and it's like, yeah, this isn't for us. This didn't work for us for one reason or another. But we've wasted now 10 hours looking at 10 different CRMs and doing 10 different demos. Whereas for us, it was like, right, where can we go that we can just look at it, where we can get reviews from people who've used it, where we can have an actual understanding and be able to see the content that they've got and all that sort of stuff, so we can make our decision about, okay, we're going to reach out to these guys. And you say that to recruiting business owners, they're like, yeah, but what about kickers? You must get kickbacks and stuff like that. Not that we do, but even if we did, how does
they don't? I can vouch for that. You don't.
Yeah, and you feature on there. I mean, look, you're in our recommended.
But again, in fact, this is a great example. Your business is on there. You're 5-star rated. You're down as recommended. You've never paid us a penny for that. How many times have you ever had a phone call from either myself, Sean, Tristan, BB, or anyone else in the business and saying, "Oh, hey, we according to our web information and analytics, we sent you 55 customers last week. Can we, do you want to give us a little
affiliate
feedback?
Scheme or something?
Let's set up some sort of affiliate scheme." You just don't. We don't do it.
No.
We've got it up there. We leave you to do it, right? Because there's just not enough people out there that kind of have that mentality. Let's make the industry better.
Right. Okay. So that's what I wanted to say as well about the question of the recruitment industry does need some change. It does need that more like the thing I would go back to you with about if you can't place a candidate, how many times have you encouraged that candidate to register with other agencies or show them right?
The guys are trained to do that.
Exactly.
I'm not necessarily. The chances of me placing you are, whatever, 1 in 5, 1 in 4, 1 in 3, depending on kind of what desk it is. And we're honest with them. Can you please make sure that you are registering with other agencies, that you are applying for jobs directly yourself, and can you just make sure that you've got other processes going on? Please do not rely on me or any of my staff to get you a job.
But look at best practices of if we're trying to be like law firms, accounting practices, and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
You speak to an accountant, and if they aren't an R&D specialist, they'll recommend you.
They don't pretend to be. Yeah.
Yeah, they'll recommend and refer you to an R&D specialist. If you're looking at an employment solicitor, well, your commercial solicitor isn't going to say, yeah, I could do that for you. They'll recommend you to an employment one. And in the same way, we have this sort of relationship with Mark Hopkins, really, don't we?
Yeah.
With with Mark Hopkins and 1 or 2 others in the past as well, where if we, especially when we were doing just accounting and finance, weren't able to service a candidate or a client, it's like, this is the guy that you need to see, or this is the business that you need to talk to. These are the ladies that you need to have a chat with, because that's kind of creating a better reputation for the industry.
I think it's creating a better reputation for the industry, but I think we look at whenever I was selling, I would look at my short-term pipeline, my mid-term pipeline, and my long-term pipeline. And my short-term was what I could do in 30 days. My mid-term was what I could do in sort of 90 days, and then long-term was anything over 90 days. And if I can leave that person with a lasting impression that I was a really good guy, then they will come back at some point in the future. But again, coming back to this technology argument, I think if CRMs, all of those CRM vendors were using all of this, talking about AI and all these other things, give us the biggest problem that sales, because I trained like thousands of recruiters through my training courses when I had the training company, and I could teach somebody how to market candidates. And then they would go back to their office, and then the software that they were using wouldn't support identifying companies that they could market them to. Now, our industry could get a whole lot better at serving volumes, and that's what a lot of the big companies have, or the companies that have got maturity. And you take a Michael Page has got 30 years of company records and stuff. And it's just that ability, and this was going back to the basics. I had 25 places. I knew all 350 investment banks in the City of London, so I knew which ones to canvass and stuff. And you don't need to know thousands of companies, but you do need to know a few hundred well. And again, we learnt that system from Michael Page. They had 400, we had 350. So I think it's there's a lot of good recruiters who come into recruitment companies and aren't given enough data,
all the tools around
right,
them, aren't
to actually have a go at. Because again, if we're talking about what's been happening for the last 10 years, the demand for candidates has outstripped supply in quite a lot of niches, more niches than less, right? So canvassing candidates in is a natural strategy, but it's do you know enough places to canvass them into, and then this comes back to like how are people's patches divided. So I think there's a lot of strategy that needs to be looked at inside a recruitment company. It's like if I was working in the City of London, as I was, and I had like postcodes EC 1, 2, 3 and 4, but I only had every third letter of the alphabet as a company, is there even enough business in that model, right? Now that goes back to Xerox. When we're going back to capital equipment, Xerox would give you like a territory which was W1, and Canon would give you West London. And Xerox, you would talk to, get loads of data on companies and, know all about the companies in your patch. So I think for recruitment to do better, to serve candidates better, to serve its own employees better, you've got to solve that company data issue. There's lots of tools out there that can recover vacancies from people's pages and so on and so forth. And I think I never found a preferred suppliership I couldn't crack with a good candidate.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. We built a business and doing exactly that.
So, and the second thing or it might even be the third, I can't keep count because I'm dyslexic, but the second or third thing I wanted to say.
I just use that as an excuse.
I can.
That in, like.
No, I can, yeah. No, I can and I do. I can't be asked to spell, really. But
why is the word dyslexic so hard to spell? Like, the irony, right? But yeah, go on, sorry. Yeah.
Well, you think about it from recruitment. I don't think I've ever written recruitment correctly once in all the time, and I've been in it since '93. So,
if you go on LinkedIn and type in recruitment incorrectly, you'll be surprised how many people haven't spelled it right. And these are recruitment consultants.
Do you remember that we used to work with a guy?
He put himself down as a management consultant.
Consultant,
and he had it down like that for 3 years.
We spotted it for ages. But nobody
into search, type in recruitment, but spell it wrong, and you see how many people have got it as their job title.
I'll tell you a funny thing about being dyslexic as well. A lot of
the right, Tristan.
People that say like, don't use that as an excuse. You've got spell check. Well, Word doesn't agree with Grammarly. Grammarly doesn't agree with
really
Chrome.
Doesn't.
I had to get rid of Grammarly because it was just
click on people across the top.
It was just throwing stuff out for me that was just like, no, but I know this isn't right. I'm proper grammar police, so like I'll look at it and be like, yeah, I know that's grammatically incorrect. And a lot of it's Americanized as well, isn't it? So it just
Well, my Grammarly keeps trying to turn me into Peaky Blinders. So
keep it like that. See where it says search instead for? Oh. Yeah, because it's auto corrected you. Oh, there's one person that's spelled it like that, but yeah, if you do the that's it.
I think this is turning into a failed project now.
No, it's not. No, watch. You'll see. There you go. 69 people have spelled recruitment with the U and the I the wrong way around. Here's looking at you. Go stop there. Naomi Brewer, if you're listening to this, in Cape Town.
Should be, yeah.
Yeah,
we're big in Cape Town.
It's the number one podcast, right?
That's
why I'm here.
Talk, number one podcast in Cape Town.
You told me it was number one, yeah.
Number one, yeah, according to our listeners.
But anyway, going back to stealing my thunder,
we're
right? The other thing is, I think this recruiter bashing, it actually is an excuse by recruiters who haven't got anything else to sell. Like, if you can say your competition are bad and we don't do this and they do that and we don't do this and they do that, all you're saying is the 10 things that people think recruitment is, we don't do them, but you're not actually saying anything new. You're not actually saying anything clever about your business. You're literally just saying, well, we don't do that.
And that's worrying, because actually if you're focusing more on what it is that you don't do, and you're not able to tell you what you do.
Do means poo.
Well, it's also, if we're going to be raising standards, if we're saying these standards that already exist, we're not doing the bad bits of them. We're not actually coming up with 10 new standards.
No, of course
we're
not.
just saying, well, we don't do those 10 things badly. That's our USP.
But then,
right?
but this is it. Do you know? It's interesting. If you ever ask a recruiter, okay, well, what is your USP then? What is your USPs? Your whether it's your business or your personal brand. What's your USP? They struggle. People really struggle with that, especially salespeople in the recruitment world, because you can. Oh, well, we just do things better. How? How do you do things better? How do you know you do things better than every single recruiter out there?
And also, this whole because look, the truth of the matter is, you as a recruiter, as good as Mick was and as good as the brand was and all that sort of stuff, it was you as a recruiter who was servicing your clients, not your recruitment business, right? And it's the same with whether we're at Michael Page, whether we're doing it here. It's people buy into us as the actual consultants who are servicing their vacancies and servicing their business. So if the answer to your USP isn't "it's me," then you're already looking at the wrong answers.
Yeah.
Because the truth of the matter is, you've got to be able to raise your own standards, but actually be quite transparent about what it is that you are. I mean, I say to my candidates all the time, listen, I charge a fee based on the salary that I get you, right? So the higher your salary, the higher my fee. I'm not gonna be shy about that. That's the industry. That's what we're in.
It doesn't pay me to not get you the best salary.
Yeah.
Well,
however, if I can't get you the salary that you want,
I don't want to price you out either.
Disparity there, and you need to understand that. Yeah.
Right. Well, this is the other contradiction in why I say a lot of this stuff is just not real. It's just noise for noise sake. It's like coffee. One day we're told coffee is good for you. The next day we're told coffee gives you cancer. Look on LinkedIn for a day and you'll see all these posts about recruiters just want to squeeze you into the job and they won't try and talk up your salary because they're terrible. They're the worst humans on, and all they want to do is help the employer and get you in for the lowest possible salary. And then that'll be 5 posts, and then another 5 posts. Recruiters are all pimps. They're all out for the biggest commission that they can get, and they're,
we
it's
also
like
pimps by a client, wasn't we? Do you remember? She was like, "You're just candidate pimps."
So
like,
how's the industry doing all these things at the same time?
Well, yeah, it's a giant contradiction, isn't it? But I think that part of it is.
There you go. I got my point over.
It's about being able to. it's about being able to just be honest with candidate and client. Like if as a client you're sitting there saying to me, I want the best candidate in the world, but I want to pay 10% below market average, I'm going to tell you that you're either going to have to up your salary or change your expectations of what you want this candidate to be. Equally, if you're a candidate and you want 10% above the market average, but you're a relatively average candidate, you need to be honest about that. Look, in my shortlist already of like 4 or 5 or 6 or however many candidates I have, you're pricing yourself out because I've got these 5 candidates that are great and within budget, and you're coming in outside budget. What do you think my client's going to do? And it's a very simple conversation to have with a candidate or to have with a client for them to understand the reason why behind why you're doing it. Instead, what we get is, I just don't think the client's going to pay that much because of this. Just be honest with them. Be honest with the candidate. Be honest with the client.
Again, coming back to how we evolve as an industry, it's the classic business meeting, right? You go into a business meeting, it's meant to be an hour long, and for 45 minutes, your management team just tells you how shit you are, how many KPIs you missed, how many standards you've lowered yourself to, and so on and so forth. And then in the last 15 minutes, right, now we've bashed you down for 45 minutes. Let's all come up with some really creative ideas about how we get out of this hole. And maybe it's a bit utopia. Some people go, oh, it's always a bit lovey and stuff. But you've got to love your industry. You've got to invest in your industry. You've got to be a bit like more like the mix of this world and, put your arm around people and say, what's good about this industry? Get us all into the euphoric state of mind about the industry and then start picking off these challenges. Because if you have that same hour meeting and big people up for 45 minutes and you'll come out of that room with 10 cracking ideas or 3 cracking ideas, if you just knock it down for 45 minutes, you just come out with demotivated workers, and then you get like people going, well, I'm not like that. I'm different. And then you just got instead of the industry showing, you just got 1 or 2 people saying, well, not 1 or 2 people. You've got like anyone who feels, injustice. I've never speculatively sent out a CV without asking the candidate type thing.
I always find that, if you feel the need to defend that, then, there's a reason for that.
Sometimes
it's like calling somebody Jeffrey Dahmer as a joke and then them feeling the need to DM you about it.
Yeah.
Adam Nichols did that.
That's a story for another day, I think. For a day that Adam
it's
Nichols...
a story he can tell when he comes on the podcast.
That's a story that Adam Nichols can talk to us about.
But yeah, as I say, I mean, it's not utopia. The industry does need to grow, and it does need to give better tools to its employees, and it needs to recognise what you said, that it's the employees that do the work. And the pandemic, I think, obviously the human devastation that went on with that, so it's a very difficult subject to say, well, it handed the recruitment industry, I think, a huge opportunity, because people were working from home, and it's like, well, I can actually do this for myself. They had the confidence.
Yeah, it opened a lot of people's eyes and minds to it. That followed by the amount of layoffs and stuff that were happening and are continuing to happen now. Yeah, I mean, the working landscape is going to change, right? But I think there's two key bits there from what you said. Number one is that the data piece. Data is the new currency. Data is the new currency. And for some reason in the recruitment industry, we're just not investing enough money in the right sort of tech to take that data and do something useful with it that's going to benefit all parties involved, and all parties being the clients, the candidates, and the recruiters in the middle.
Do you know why, though? Is because if you think about the people who are using the data, for the most part, you're only going to get a certain level of input and output from consultants. I mean, we've worked with so many different consultants who, I mean, one of our guys upstairs is terrible at maintaining the CRM, and I'm banging on him all the time. Like, look, keep your CRM up to date. This is the blueprint to get you organised, so that you know who to spec, where to spec them to, what clients to work with, what clients have got what tools in their arsenal, all that sort of stuff. Just refuse to do it because it's so admin heavy, It is at the start, but once you're organised and you're in a place where you know what's going on, it's great. And I think the problem is...
That's one consultant though, right? As an industry in general, we need to...
But we've got that across
the investment needs to happen, not by sort of... Because the issue you've got is, and we'll come to Recruitzy in a minute, because it kind of links in. And the issue you've got is you have a lot of people with good ideas that come up with new ways of doing things, and it just gets completely forgotten about, or doesn't ever even see the light of day, because it hasn't got the big tech back in, it hasn't got the financials behind it, it doesn't get pumped up enough to see the light of day. And good ideas just don't ever seem to make it out, right? And that's an overall kind of Cinderella story within tech anyway. So many good ideas you just never hear about because they never get out of Silicon Valley.
I think that's the users. I think if you look at kind of the reason that even the big recruitment businesses don't invest that much in the tech to be able to create these great ATSs is because the users are just going to they'll waste it.
Yeah, but I make myself very unpopular with CRM and ATS vendors all the time, because I question it. What it's 2023. Why can't I, as your recruiter upstairs, feed a CV into the system? It scans that CV and looks at all the company records on that CV and compares them as to whether you've got those company records in your database, and then fires up a little management message window to a central administrator, if not the recruiter, because they don't have time, and says, "We found 3 companies you don't have. Do you want their records added and created?" Then it can push out. You can just do a basic Google search.
The tech exists to do all of that.
Pull all this information into the system, and then I'm ready to go, type of thing. It's 2023. I've been in since 1993, and what tech vendors ever addressed that issue? And maybe I'm speaking out of turn, and some of them have, but I don't. I talk to my customers. I talk to the industry. I don't know anyone who's got an ATS like that. And I had a little try at building ATSs, and that's what I wanted it to do. I wasn't. Anyone can store candidate data.
Well, we tried it. We tried with a interactive CV profile that we were trying to create.
Yeah, the hardest part was that parsing.
Yeah.
That parsing information. But it's because there are over 1 million different ways to present a CV. There are 1 million different ways, and at the time when we were doing that, it wasn't as mainstream. Now we're on the precipice of with OpenAI and AI becoming to the forefront of kind of mainstream tech. I think we're at that point now where we can rely on software houses to do that, where there's no excuse anymore, right?
But Burning Glass and Daxtra have had that technology. They can identify that
Absolutely,
data for the last decade, right?
Yeah.
But as an industry, all of the solutions are coming. We need to show you how to get more candidates. We need to show you how to connect with candidates faster and so on and so on. And fine, the industry's been in boom for 10 years, but we are not pushing the tech vendors. We're going, right, okay, we're just dealing with the status quo. And this comes, again, back, if you're under bombardment to get sales out the door quickly, you're going to cut corners. Everyone does it. And we need like more maturity. And you guys, again, not just because you've invited me here and you're helping me with rec tools and all these other things, you're one of a handful of people that I speak to who've got an idea we should do something different than just complain about it. So, yeah, I mean, tech's got to step up and produce a better product. If you're selling cars, as a car salesperson, the system will churn out to you, someone bought this car 3 years ago, now's the time to make a sales code. It's got predictive tech in it.
But when I used to work in the motor trade, it used to come up, customers had this car for 6 months now, give them a call, check how it's going. Customers had the car 12 months. This customer's had the car 3 years now, they're at the manufacturer's warranty, give them a call.
To the extent that it would literally be like, oh, okay, you know, this person's had this car for 12 months, we know exactly what finance deal they're on. If they have stayed within their 6,000 miles a year allowance, we can approximately offer them this much for their car, which means it will write off their finance. Get this person in. This is a gold lead or a hot lead.
Also,
you know what I mean?
it would create it as a task. So what you would have is every morning in your CRM, you would have a bunch of tasks that have been auto-generated based on the fact that these are things that the system or the industry or the business recognises that you should be cracking on with. Yeah.
Now, again, same as you guys, I don't pay anybody to recommend me, and I don't pay to be recommended. And it's that's probably the same thing, isn't it? But no money exchanges hands either way, right? So yeah, I'm dyslexic, right? Did I say that? Did I mention that?
No, you hadn't mentioned that. No,
okay, right. Sorry about that. I missed that out. Talisman, I've seen their product, and it's got a load of automated routines. It's got obviously there's stuff with the.
Is that the free to use one? He does.
There's an element of it that's free to use. Yeah.
Free to use one. Then
yeah. So David's got a really sharp mind for creating these routines. Like, you know, going back to my day, if I had 28 contractors out, I would be mindful of their end dates. But what I really needed to be mindful of is the 400 in my network or 350 in my network. And I didn't place them this time around, but they're coming to an end on this contract for computer futures or computer people type of thing. It's that kind of data we need to know. So we're only one-dimensionally tracking who we're touching. And as you say, you know, we could touch 100 candidates and place 10. So 90, we're not then, they're going into
the... In the ether, aren't
but
they?
The text that we've got at the minute, we're relying on what we put in. And and if the level of crap goes in, it's crap that's going to come out like anything, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So, yeah, well, there you go. So tell us about Recruitzy then. I'm conscious that we've gone on way over the time, but this has been an interesting listen for, I think, most people in the industry. So tell us about Recruitzy. Here's your chance to onboard some people, I think.
Well, Recruitzy is my gift to the recruitment industry. Your gift is Rec Tools. My gift is Recruitzy.
Our gift is us, Darren.
Is it?
Yeah, we're the gift.
Yeah. Rec Tools is just a byproduct of us. We could be in any industry.
Well, you need to get out of the recruitment website industry because you're number one, and I can't handle the competition. So, but yeah, the idea behind Recruitzy is the recruitment industry could have solved this problem with job boards a long, long time ago.
Okay.
Because job boards only really exist because recruiters put jobs on them, and if the recruiters hadn't put the jobs on everybody else's job boards and had put their jobs on the industry job board, then they wouldn't be having this problem that, you know, the Reeds, the CV Live. I mean, they're all good companies. I'm not knocking them as companies, but they've got control of the candidate generation to a level which is unhealthy on two levels: the cost that they're demanding for their service, and the fact that you've outsourced what basically to companies at least makes you unique, which is you've come up with a good quality candidate. So there's been a lot of noise again on LinkedIn, getting noisier and noisier and noisier for the last 3-4 years, and then obviously the big push in the summer last year when
Total Jobs got an arse kicking on LinkedIn, didn't they? With the amount of real costs. Some of them were atrociously high.
But do you know the other thing about these? Because you've listed on your site here, like you've got Reed, CV Library, TJ, Jobs Like Monster. They all, if you look at their website, attract the highest number of candidates. So CV Library would always say to us, yeah, we've attracted more, like over X amount of million candidates to our database.
Metrics, baby. No,
Yeah,
we're
but then-
the number one podcast
We are. the
by
number
some
one.
metric.
According to Naomi Brewer in Cape Town.
Yeah.
She's a big fan.
She's a big
Yeah.
fan.
Yeah.
Yeah. But go on, carry on, sorry.
But yeah, so they're powerhouses, but they're powerhouses because
Well,
they.
we've given them the power, haven't
Yeah.
we? Yeah. It's I've never had it put that way before, but we've literally gone like blown so much smoke up their asses that they're now big tech looking down at us, going, "Well, you want to advertise your jobs on our job board on our platform? It's our platform, and we dictate the price." And we're kind of like, "Oh crap!
Well,
What have we done?"
just think about this in real terms. Would Sainsbury's, Tesco's, Asda take all of their own brand products and put them for sale in Lidl?
No, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And that's what we're doing as an industry. We're taking all of our own brand vacancies and putting them in these places that make money out of them being there. And I'm not sure whether this is accurate or not because I heard it third hand, but apparently the total job strategy was to be kinder to employers who have been paying a financial penalty because they advertise in less numbers and the recruitment industry advertises in volume, and therefore to raise the cost of the recruiters advertising to equal the cost of the employers advertising. Now,
This was put out by the actual either MD or CEO, someone very high up within TJ when there was a lot of bad press going on LinkedIn. He put some post out which was basically to that effect. Yeah.
Right.
Well, historically we've given the agencies an easy ride and we've like charged clients that are hiring businesses, and that's not fair. That dynamic needs to change because you guys are the ones taking all the volume.
so instead of lowering the cost of the employers advertising, they raise the cost of the recruit, and that's dangerous. I mean, that's the cost of the increase, and
Well, we asked them for they were BDing us. This is before it all kicked off. They were BDing us once, and we went, "Oh, I'll tell you what, give us a week's free trial. Let's see what you are. We're really happy with who we use at the minute, but go on, then give us a week's trial." And they went, "We don't do trials. We just don't do that. We don't feel the need to." Fine, okay, no problem. Then all the shit hits the fan, blah 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 blah, and we've had 2 emails from them in the last month going, "Oh, would you like a week's trial? We're a great job board. We're fantastic. We outdo them on the following metrics on all these others. Do you want a 3 weeks trial?" Well, hang on a minute. When we needed one and asked you for one, you didn't want to go. You
Well,
want to know.
for me,
Now
they
you're having
declined
to beg back your custom because a lot of people didn't.
They
you know,
declined
renew.
in stages for me. For me, it started off with they were doing unlimited CV views, and they were charging for their advertisements and all that. But the CV database was there; you could just use it, unlimited CV views. Then that changed to the read model of 1 CV download equals 1 credit, and then they doubled and tripled and quadrupled their price. And then, but their justification for that, remember, was, "Oh, we've now merged with JobSite."
Yeah, bought JobSite, haven't they? Yeah.
Did they merge? Or did
No, they bought because TJ still exists. The JobSite don't.
Yeah. That's
Call
right.
it a merger all you want. That's an acquisition in my eyes.
well, again, it comes back to these numbers. So there's lots of noise on LinkedIn that people are unhappy with job boards. I'd said just solve it yourself as an industry, buy a job board, and lots of people said that. Yeah, but nobody wanted to step up and buy it. So we make job boards. We had one spare that was half built. So we finished building it and we built it as a kind of multi-sector site. And we're not trying to, claim that we're going to be the next Reed CV library overnight type of thing, but job boards are successful if they have jobs. So if you look at those sites, they've got anywhere from 100 to 250,000 jobs on them. A job board that has got 100 to 250,000 jobs on it will be given search engine rankings by Google. It will be given search engine rankings by Bing. It will be given search engine rankings by Google for Jobs. And again, if you look at what's going on the Google for Jobs platform, when I say I love the industry, I genuinely love this industry.
You can
right?
tell.
So,
you really go into this, don't you?
when Google for Jobs came into existence, its first goal was to get employers jobs, not recruiters jobs, and obviously that didn't work out as quite well as they wanted. But Google for Jobs is manipulating the results that are in the Google for Jobs environment, and I've put evidence forward to the European body that's investigating them, because there was a complaint made about 15 job aggregators all got together and put in a complaint, and it's being investigated. And what we could see is, if you say, Michael Sharma, you've got your job and you put it into Google for Jobs, but you've also got that job on Reed, that the Reed advert comes up the rankings higher than Michael Sharma's does, for argument's sake. And if you're looking at first principle, your job is the first originator of that advert,
Yeah, it's
and
the
therefore
source.
Yes, the
yours
primary source,
should
yeah.
come up higher. But we know that the job boards are being given a higher ranking trust for their adverts. What you might also see if you check your adverts is that other people's buttons appear on your advert. Whereas if you go and check your job board adverts, I've yet to see, I mean, maybe it exists, but I've yet to see it, that the job board's advert puts your button to your website on it. Okay, and again, we come back to the Total Jobs example. When you land on a Total Jobs advert, within 2 or 3 seconds of you being on that advert, a little pop-up window says, we've got 20 more of these jobs, click here to see them all. So not only are you putting an advert on a job board...
you're paying for an extortionate price to get them to advertise your thing, but also at the same... Yeah.
So
and then it's like, oh yeah, if you like Ford Fiestas, you might like the Vauxhall Corsa, come have a look at this. And
So what Recruitzy is about is it's a membership. You can only join...
rejects cookies, it's really funny.
You can only join the membership if you're a recruitment company, active as a recruitment company. So we don't want employer adverts on there. And instead of it...
Do candidates want that though?
Well, I think again it comes back to candidates have that choice. If they don't want to see recruitment adverts, then they don't have to use it, do they? But invariably, the candidate,
They just want a job, don't they? Really?
if they're looking for jobs, normally if you're looking for a job, like I'm not looking for a car at the moment, but I casually look at cars.
Yeah.
All right. But when my car is gone and I actually need another vehicle, then my search is I'll look everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, I will scroll every page. I'll look on Facebook cars. I'll look on eBay cars. I'll look on Auto Trader cars. You know, I'll look on every car website type of thing.
So that's a fair point.
So I think, again, if you look at the community that is served by job boards, it's people who are definitely looking. And therefore, I don't think the problem would be there's no employer adverts on there. What I think the problem would be is if we get, only 50 users of a Recruitzy and it's got 1,000 jobs on it, it needs 100,000 jobs on it. It needs 1,000 recruiters to subscribe. So we put this price point in as, £300 and it's unlimited jobs. And we've measured that against clients that we've got that are using these other platforms and they're getting 20 jobs a month for £3,000 a year.
Okay.
But on the website that we provided them, they've got 50 jobs every month. So not only is it £3,000 for 20 jobs a month, they've got 30 jobs they can't advertise. And actually, one of my clients just said to me, he's hired a third person into his team, and one of these job boards wants to raise his price from £250 a month to £750 a month,
Just for the extra
just
login.
to get 10 more jobs,
Excellent.
right? So what we're hoping is that there's a number of enough recruiters, 30,000 active recruiters, 42,000. There's enough recruiters out there who can afford to pay the £300 as a long-term investment for the industry. Now, it's written into the contracts we can't sell Recruitzy, so Total Jobs can't come along and buy it, which, it's eventually, once I've nurtured it into a big enough position, the idea is that we will push it into its own league of vehicle that membership can then truly control. And our part of it will just be that we will be the service agent for the tech because it's our tech originally type of thing.
But you want it essentially owned by members, run by members.
Yeah, and then
Kind of building society model.
exactly.
If you will.
And if we've got our numbers wrong, then we go to the membership and say, look, GPT has come along, it's replaced Google in 5 years. We need to spend £300,000 as a membership on doing this to the tech or that to our marketing strategy. But the idea behind the membership fees is they'll be spent on SEO strategies, pay-per-click strategy. And obviously, if we've got 100 members, we've got 30,000. If we've got 1,000 members, we've got 300,000.
Yeah.
Now, again, these big job boards have got millions to play with, but it's the longevity of it. We've got to stick at this for 2-3 years and understand that it's a long-term play. Mm-hmm. You'll get short-term wins for, some people will be getting immediate wins, some people will be getting short-term wins, medium wins, long-term wins, but
it's priced at such a point though that it's almost a case of you're not expecting an immediate win. If you're spending £3,000, you expect immediate results. If you're spending £300, then it's a case of okay, well,
that's saying that is. I'm backing you. I like you. I like what you're about. Here's my money.
We'll back this. We'll back this.
What you just tell us what we can do to support this. Obviously, you can put us down for a membership. Send me all the information through. That's absolutely we're on board with that.
Is this on?
I wanted to give this a piece
Is it on Rectals?
on RecTalk so that we can cut this and get it out and kind of churn it through all of our social channels and stuff like that. Because I think it's important. I think what you're doing is really good.
Okay, so it's not on Rectools yet, so we'll
No.
get it onto Rectools.
It's not live yet. That's why I didn't put it on yet, because it's not officially launched yet. But we can certainly put it on as a to be launching soon. Sort of thing.
Maybe like at least a call to action so that somebody can get through to Darren.
We are a month behind launch because
I was just about to say, when's the plan to launch?
it was the end of January, but I forgot because I'm dyslexic. I do that. Did I mention
You
that?
can't keep using that as an excuse,
No,
Darren.
I thought it 3 times and I'm good.
No, one of the main symptoms of dyslexia is forgetfulness. Yeah, I got you down.
I don't remember, but apparently.
But
But yeah, so I forgot to specify that it needed sub accounts. So as you know, if you've got 10 recruiters, once you got your main user account, and then you've got 9 that are sub accounts. I forgot to specify that bit, so it just took us a month longer to,
You just have to rebuild
create
that
that.
piece.
Yeah.
Right,
But yeah, it's generally, you know, something that the industry. I want the industry to see it as its own thing. That it can take on, and if all it does is last 3 years and half the price of the other job boards, because it's a thorn in their side, the industry would have done that for itself by So
it'd be good to see the industry band together. I'm just really skeptical about kind of.
Do you know, it's funny though, yeah, because you say that, but then we do stuff like this, and the recruiters that we've kind of made network connections with and that kind of thing, there are really good people within the industry that want to see it do well and grow and develop and that kind of thing. I think our problem is that LinkedIn just keeps chucking us the shitty algorithm of like, look how crap recruiters are.
It's not that, Nick. I think for me, it's a case of like there are a lot of people like us, Darren, yourself, Mark Hopkins. You know, there's so many people within the industry who are just really in for the industry, right? Like the industry has unlocked so many different personal opportunities for me. Same as with you, right?
Yeah.
This industry has done really well for me.
well, 2 Flash Range Rovers outside apparently. So
I mean, they're not
They're
flash.
not ours. Yeah, they're not ours. I don't know whose they are. Now, have you not seen me in my fucking people wagon because I've got about 200 kids?
Yeah, that Uber is it?
Yeah. But no, like the industry has done really good for us in terms of our personal goals and personal opportunities and stuff like that. So I'm passionate about making sure that as an industry we can band together and kind of make things happen for ourselves. So something like this is great. It's the distrust amongst other recruiters that I don't get where it comes from.
I do. It's drilled into us when we're in bigger businesses. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't, and that's kind of disappearing now.
It is a smaller boutique agencies.
It's melting. It's definitely not gone yet, but it's definitely melting. There's a big distrust within kind of the recruitment industry of other recruiters, because historically there was a period of time where, not as far back as when you probably first started, but certainly I would say in the last 10 years, where, as I said, we're sat here working at Michael Page, and you're having to hide jobs from other parts of your own fucking business, because they might come in and be like, oh, well, technically, is that not an IT job? Well, technically, we can probably support with that. Or, oh, that client doesn't like this part of the business. You grow up in that environment. It's like those that eat their food with their hand around their plate. They've grown up with people stealing off their plate. That's why they eat that way, right? It's the same thing. The recruiters that we're describing have grown up in that industry because they're like, well, I can't even walk past another recruitment agency without them being like, oh yeah, who are you working with? Who's that client? Oh, okay, yeah. And then they'll go and spec your CV in.
Well, even the interview process is, so what clients are you working with?
Fucking hell, yeah. While we were kind of in the first round of when we were recruiting, we were meeting recruiters and stuff that were working elsewhere. And they were going, like, at the end of the interview, they were going, did you not want to know who my clients are? I'm like, no, I don't give a fuck who your clients are. Why? Everyone else has asked me first. That's one of the first 3 questions I've been asked.
You know what did that to our industry, right?
Dyslexic people.
I'm not allowed to use that excuse. That's 4. I've had 3, right? PSLs. When it went PSL crazy, the PSL just turned the recruitment industry inward on itself, because there's this magic 10, and to get on that 10, you had to start abusing the rest of the people,
each other,
to get onto that list, because
it's
again,
crabs in a bucket syndrome, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, desperate to some recruiters were desperate to get on PSLs. Some recruiters, are proud as punch that they're on PSLs and they do very good jobs. Again, but that whole vehicle of PSLs that says 10 of you that are better than 3,000 others.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
And therefore, what do owners of businesses go? Well, we now need to measure ourselves against those 10 or those. And then this is the best thing about PSLs. PSLs work because they pick the 10 best suppliers. Then they've got the 20 others that are on the second tier list when the first tier 10 fail, right?
Yeah.
So
and then there's little tin pot Michael Sharma group expecting a great candidate that the other 30 didn't find.
Yeah.
And then they're scratching their heads like, how did they find this candidate, but these 30 couldn't?
I believe it was McKinsey's, because I was working with a company called Intertech, and they had about 200 contractors on site at Amex, and McKinsey's went in and said to Amex, look, you're the powerhouse here, not these guys. Now, Intertech had spent 10 years building an infrastructure to serve that account, and they changed the rules, and Intertech wasn't on the list because Intertech wouldn't go down to silly percentages, quite rightly so. Within a year's time, they were invited back because Amex couldn't do it.
That's because you're asking good recruiters and good recruitment agencies to do what they do and have been doing really, really well for you guys for the last however many years or months even, but now do it at a much more reduced price because they're only going to use you.
Well, because everyone else will.
And maybe because 9 others as well.
Yeah. Thank you for everything you've done so far. I need you to half your price. Why? Well, because everybody else is willing to. Okay, but nobody else has done the work that we've done. I know, but they're willing to. All right, fine. I'd go with them. I'll see you in a year.
And again, the industry has an antidote for that. That's literally one of the good things about CRMs and ATSs is they have a little code on there where you mark them as a source site.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They're when you
candidates in
there. When your good clients have got no candidates, and they say where are you going to get these from? You go, well, those 10 companies with 7.5% as their PSL, and you've got to take HR to the races every 3 months and stuff like that. So
yeah.
So how are you getting on then with the marketing for Recruitzy then? Have you done much?
It's all very amateur. It's just me saying noisy things like...
We know a guy in the recruitment marketing world, don't we? His name is Rob?
Barry Woodford. Yeah.
Robert.
Old Woody.
Legend.
Yeah.
Absolute legend.
Yeah. He is a legend. He had us howling in here for
he's a good guy. Yeah. Really good guy. It was really, really good podcast, that one.
Yeah.
This has been really insightful, though. I really, really appreciate you giving me your time.
No worries.
What do you need from us for Recruitzy? Obviously, send us the membership thing. We'll pledge that straight away. But what do you need from us? What can we do to help get Recruitzy off the ground?
Well, we'll obviously get it on Rec Tools so that there's a call to action of some sort for people to get in touch with you.
Yeah, Rec Tools would be cool. Thank you very much. And I mean, obviously, you're helping me by giving it a voice here because it's not been given a voice anywhere else just yet. Probably never will be. But
don't
just
short.
Naomi at Cape Town, mate. She'll see this.
She's in.
She'll fire up.
But yeah, I mean, just a little bit of noise and getting the industry. Hopefully, this genuinely gets the industry to understand this is not. It can't make me a multi-millionaire. If we have 1,000 people sign up at £300,
this isn't
that's 300,000.
The intention isn't to.
I'd be at 3,000.
Perhaps that might be the angle. Maybe the angle is to go. Do you know what? No, this isn't a case of lining, your retirement fund. This is every bit of money that we make goes back into it in spend on automation, marketing, and a board, a team, and kind of just to grow it, right? Because again, you look at that piece of recruiters not liking recruiters or whatever. There's nothing stopping somebody looking at that and be like, Recruitzy, I'll make something similar and do it myself, and then you end up crabs in a bucket again, right? Whereas actually, if that's I don't know if you've had that as a barrier, but look, if my £300 go in your back pocket, I don't mind that.
Well,
but there might be some that do, right?
The barriers so far, I mean, we've spoken to probably 100 people.
Okay.
Since in deep conversations about it, and 78 of them have signed up. 79 now, thank you. And
that's
the ones
conversion.
Well, yeah, I mean, if it continues like that, happy days. But the ones who haven't signed up are seeing it as a traditional, like they're thinking of it. And again, this is my responsibility, so I'm at fault here. But the feedback I'm getting is they're thinking of it. Oh, this is another read that's come along. So how quickly? And it's like, no, it's not that. It's a slow burn venture. If we wanted to make it a fast burn venture, we need 3,000 as an annual fee, and nobody wants to risk 3,000.
Or you go to a VC, you go to an angel investor, you get somebody on board that's going to pump it full of cash.
Yeah, you can imagine me on Dragon's Den, can't you? When they say, what's the pricing model? I said, we don't want to make any money out of this, Dragons. we just want to do this nice thing for the industry. Yeah, Peter Jones will be kicking me out very quickly, but...
I don't know, but
Stephen Bartlett won't be, mate. He's
he's all about that social selling piece. He's put that in. He's put a little fund together actually for entrepreneurs.
yeah, I've seen that, the growth fund type thing.
He's a
Although
legend.
I saw something
Might be
recently
worth
about him.
tickling him a little bit.
Yeah.
I saw something about him recently where it said that he's a bit full of shit in that.
Don't say that, I'm trying to get him on the podcast.
So, well, he can come and answer for himself, can't he?
Why are you full of shit?
So apparently, and this is just me like getting all my source of information from TikTok, but he said that he sold his business for like 30 million or something, right? So apparently he didn't. Social Chain Limited it had only recently been sold for like 7 million. Do you want to fact check me on this, Tristan? But Social Chain AG, which was the German conglomerate that invested in him,
Social Chain.
They were the ones that were sold, or they were valued at 30 million around the time when he was like, yeah, look, my business is worth 30 million. So put in Social Chain AG,
HQ'd in.
So apparently this whole thing of like, oh yeah, I sold my business for 30 million was a crock of shit because he actually didn't, and Social Chain, the part that he created, has only just been valued at like 7 million.
Yeah, I mean, look, those numbers aside, he's still doing,
social change sale confusion. He's had to come out and talk about this, hasn't he? Because it's obviously created some sort of controversy. Well, look, I think who cares?
He's still creating income for himself, though, isn't he? Off of a very short.
And not just that, he's investing.
He still managed to make a fucking even if it's 7 mil. He still managed to make 7 mil off. But also, a social channel.
He's also investing in other people, and he's invested in growth of small entrepreneurial kind of businesses.
Honestly, right? And again, having children of like what would you say now? Mixed heritage, is that the word for it? I don't even know now. But like it's
it's just children because the moment unless mixed heritage is important, obviously.
Well,
but
it's important to this bit.
People,
yeah, as far as I'm concerned, they're children. That's what they are, right? But it's good for them to see people like that look like them doing well, and do you know what I mean? And succeeded, because you don't see that. You know, he's.
You're talking about, mate. Our Prime Minister's Indian.
Yeah, only now. Wow. He's about as Indian as my shoes, mate. To be honest.
He's grew up in a working class.
He's richer than the king, Sean. We have nothing in common with this guy. The guy's name is Rishi Sunak. Yours is Shawn Michael. You are literally polar opposites from each other.
I mean, his family are like the cornerstone of the NHS. They were running a local pharmacy. Like, this guy has come from small beginnings.
Small, humble beginnings. Yeah. Didn't even know how to use the debit card. Okay, God. Anyway, right, so let's wrap this up, shall we? So, right, guys, reach out to Darren if you are looking for a rebrand on your recruitment website, if you want some marketing support.
If Tristan isn't available.
Yeah, only if the number one vendor, Tristan, is not available for recruitment.
RecuriterWEB, we've had a look at the sites you build. They're fantastic, great quality websites. 14 5-star reviews on RecTools. And these are genuine customer reviews from genuine customers rather than paid for, if that's what you think.
And actually, for somebody who's lived the industry, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, somebody who knows, lives, eats, shits and breathes the industry and is dyslexic. So maybe proof check his, maybe proof check the content writing, but
yeah, definitely do that.
It's a father-son duo, isn't it?
There's actually 13 of us in the company.
Really?
My competition.
It looks like it's a one-man band.
Yeah, no, my competition like to tell people there's actually 13 of us. It's my wife is the co-founder of it.
Excellent.
And my son is now a third-party shareholder in it. But no, we've actually got 10 tech staff behind the three of us.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
So.
You need to tell them to update their LinkedIn, so it shows on there.
We don't put them on LinkedIn.
Why?
Well, actually, half of our work...
They're not. They're in his basement.
He went travelling with his wife once and found these little things called Oompa Loompas. And they make great websites. So in exchange
he used this recruitment service called Andrew Tate Recruitment.
Yeah, we actually have them made by RecTools. No, half of our workforce is Ukrainian.
Okay.
Awesome.
And it's taken a war in the Ukraine for everybody to suddenly love the Ukraine. But there was
I was going to say, is this pre or post?
no, since 2004, and in
Okay.
2004, I mean, a lot of people had a problem with outsourcing to India, Pakistan, and then Poland. All the negativity, or Polish has got my job type of thing, and so originally we just kept that under the radar type of thing because there were too many ignorant people out there. But so half the workforce, well, they're not in the Ukraine at the moment. There's a couple left there, but they've moved to Poland, Czech Republic, and some have come here. But yeah, no, there's more. There's more than us three, or myself and my son.
Fair
type
enough.
thing.
There you go. No, yeah,
Awesome.
'cause I saw that obviously there's yourself and your son, and shout out to your son because much like you describing your dad as your hero, I think that's probably what you are to your son. He's always commenting on your stuff. He was wishing you all the best for the podcast today and that kind of thing. It was nice to see.
Yeah, I'm very lucky. He's the apple of our eye. Karen and I, everything we do is built around him. So
How old is he?
he's 18, be 19 soon. So
You forgot.
See,
his name.
you forgot
He's
his-
dyslexic. Give him a break.
Yeah.
Right, so guys, for recruitment websites and branding and marketing outsourcing, speak to the guy, Darren Revell. He's him and his team of 14.
yeah, available
Get
for
yourself signed up to Recruitzy for all you recruitment business owners out there. Let's change the job board game together. Right?
Thank you very much.
And thank you
Appreciate
for coming
it.
on.
It's lovely to be here. Thank you.
Cheers, mate. Thanks, Darren. Appreciate that.
That was really good.
Thank you.
You were along with the Mark Hopkins.
Was I?